To the best of my knowledge, there has never before been a piece composed by 60 people. So I think this is unique. I wanted to somehow celebrate the large number of alumni composers that we've had at the Purcell School over the years. So I thought, how about having a piece that was a collaborative piece where we each contributed a tiny bit to it? And at the same time, I started to explore the idea of graffiti. And so I thought, what would a piece of musical graffiti sound like? And so that's what we decided to create. The title of the piece was very easy. We called it SCRAWL. And I gave the composers a blank score, and I said to them, please add your own fragment to this. It can be anywhere you like in the piece, just as if it were a wall, a blank wall. Think of it as your own personal stamp or signature in some way. The composers responded magnificently. I had 60 of our alumni involved, and they were going right back, even beyond the time I was at school. We've had contributions from dead alumni as well, Simon Bainbridge and Oliver Nassen, that have been given to me by their families. And we've had contributions from all the different generations of composers who've studied at the Purcell School.
I don't think that anybody has attempted anything like this before. I can't believe that anybody would. You have to be Alison to come up with something like this. And then you also have to have her powers of persuasion to get everybody to make this sort of dream a reality. It's been an extraordinary thing to see it come together, and actually I'm surprised pleasantly how well it's going, yeah.
The instrumentation is built around the forces that I knew we had available at the school. For example, we have 3 very good young percussionists, so we were able to have quite a nice large battery of percussion, with each of them playing multiple instruments. We've also got a celeste and a piano and 2 harps. A full symphony orchestra, yes. One of the things that this young orchestra had to do was to get used to jumping from one style to the other rapidly, which is a really difficult, sophisticated thing to have to do for a young player. They've done a magnificent job, and some of the players are very young. They're 13, 14 years old.
There's no prize for being first.
Do we play together then?
There's no problem with them playing anything. It fits in with everything that we're doing here. And when we're doing something like this, we just have to take it in sections, sort them out, and then work on the knitting, really. Oh, Hannah, she's an absolute rock. She's the sort of person you really enjoy working with because, first of all, she plays beautifully. She reads the music very intelligently. She's organised, and she's really, really lovely and pleasant about everything.
It's quite stressful, not gonna lie. There are some bits, because it's so chaotic. There's a lot of different sections and lots of time signature changes and just so many different things going on at once. You feel your section's eyes on you, and you're just like, oh, I have to be in the right place and I have to make sure I cue everyone right. But you know, when you get it right, it's a really good feeling and it's good fun.
We have a fantastic art department who do some really exciting creative projects. And so they've done some beautiful artwork that we're displaying as part of the orchestral setup.
SCRAWL means like scribble, so like I thought it would be cool to do a graffiti style to like mimic the music with all the different composers that composed it. And then I was thinking of words that like are used with like art and music, and then I just used spray paint and put it on there. There was just like loads of people that came and just whenever they wanted, they just drew all over it. So it's kind of like the music as well.
When you have all these different ideas from different people, and they are very, very different. There's lush sort of commercial music, very abrasive, aleatoric things, and somehow these things do work. It's amazing how we can make up a narrative, and there is a narrative to the piece.
The piece is a bit like a collage, but it's also what we would call polystylistic, because it has many, many different personalities and styles ingrained in it. I worked with Maddy Chassar-Hesketh, who is a composer in Year 12, and her piece, Simultaneous, has many parallels with my own piece, SCRAWL.
Now, polystylism was actually a term coined in the 70s by Alfred Schnittke, who was a composer hell-bent on trying to close the gap between high and low art forms. And to do that, he combined different styles, but not only just combined them in a kind of collage way, but tried to find meaningful connections between different styles to create a sort of plural approach to writing music. The orchestra as a medium is absolutely infinite. It's got a huge palette of available colours, sonorities and textures. So it was really interesting to see the process of the score come together. Similarly, in Maddy Chassar-Hesketh's score, of course, she's also employing lots of different people to write the music, but her slightly different approach to writing it, in which she has been in control of actually putting the music into the score from the different composers, professional composers, primary school children, students here at Purcell.
Simultaneous is a orchestral piece written with 60 bars from people from the ages of 4 all the way up. So I have composers who are 4 years old who have had absolutely no experience at all the way up to Judith Weir, who was Master of the King's Music. So it's a kind of piece which puts together all the different ideas and all the different musical experiences of these people in that range. We went out to schools and we ran workshops with children who were in Year 5 and also children in Year 2. And we taught kids to write music within that 40 minutes. So what we did was we kind of introduced them to what a composer is, what a composer does. We had worksheets and the kids kind of cut and stick these kind of note names and rhythms after we'd explained kind of what they do and what the sounds are. And then they had it played back to them by the musicians here at Purcell, and then they made any changes that they wanted. I'd also contacted a few kind of famous composers, so like Caroline Shaw, who was the youngest winner of the Pulitzer Prize in America, and also Judith Weir, and they both sent bars to me to kind of participate in the piece so that we had the full range. And then I kind of matched the lines up so that we ended up with these really long kind of flowing melodic lines, and that's how the piece all came together. We used every single person who put one in, we used all of them.
To go back to Schnitker's idea of closing the gap between high and low art forms, in particular in Maddy's piece, it was really amazing to see her approach the most professional composers that we have, the likes of Judith Weir, Master of the Queen's Music, but then also take snippets of music from primary school children and to put those together in a sort of democratic way, whereby not one little fragment is more important than another. It's been really amazing to see how much Maddy has learnt from the process of kind of weaving all of these things together into an orchestral score, and seeing how she's created her own style out of all these different elements. In the case of SCRAWL, Alison has, of course, got 60 different composers writing that. So just naturally, it becomes quite polystylistic because everybody has their own style of writing music.
It was not easy. First of all, I had to get all the composers engaged. I started the piece off and I handed it to the first composer. It went from one composer to the next. I've got them all in order. And then finally, I worked with composer Lauren Marshall, who's now at Harvard, and we put the ending together. I mean, I've been delighted by every bit that I've received because it was so interesting to see the different personalities and how people responded to the bits that went before them, but also to the original brief as well.
It was sort of about saying, like, realising what's come before, but then being like, actually, maybe I could just take it a completely different direction.
I was really chuffed that some people took my original little silly bit and they did things with it and made it, and did all kinds of variations and developments on it. So how did you find it, Jakob?
I mean, I found it very interesting because it actually turned out to be like this huge wall of graffiti that it was intended to be. And so it's extremely colourful, and it's very, it's very nice to see how everyone also kind of reacted to each other.
I just thought, what would a piece of musical graffiti be like? And I think today I've heard that for the first time, you know.
The good thing about graffiti is that you can be yourself without being influenced by others. Like, you can like express your idea. And what I found very fascinating was, like, in that short amount of time, I was able to like kind of let the audience know what kind of person and what kind of composition that I'm in. Like, try to write kind of like folky melody, which I took from some of the Korean traditional notes. So it's like the melody starts like this.
That's fascinating, and you managed to do all that in just a few bars. Incredible.
It's like a really interesting process for me because like it's a combination of both genres and expressing my identity.
All the 60 composers had their own personal stamp on it. I mean, with my own stamp, I tried to do my own signature as a string line that ran through the first desks of the strings.
I did something similar, but I also, like, because like in my name there's an A and a B, so I included those two notes. Very short, but I think it actually worked.
Yeah.
And so I think it's nice to have like kind of a musical signature.
So I think I was number 6, so there wasn't a massive amount of music to draw upon, but there definitely was something. And I ended up just doing something completely different because I was very impressed by that person's orchestration, and I sort of thought, I'm just going to do something completely different. So I ended up doing humming and a clarinet solo. I sort of wrote my 2 or 3 bars, and then I was like, right, it's going to be exactly like that, send it off. That's great. And then I looked at the score and I was like, well, someone's gone in and added all this stuff. And as a composer, you're like, sort of, like, someone's touched my music. But then I listened to it and I was like, oh, yeah, this is much better. It's so cool. Like, this is like, it's like a textbook of like different compositional styles. It's like, I'm definitely going to be not stealing, but taking inspiration from people. Yeah.
I would be hard put to say what form it is. You know, if I was doing I had my academic hat on, I would have to think long and hard about how to explain what happens. There is an element of repetition, but it's also quite a loose piece, and that's the nature of what it is.
I really enjoyed composing my section of SCRAWL, and literally all I did was take a long held pedal note, just one note, and then some chords, and just played around with the orchestration to see how pretty I could make it, going from high to low. So just dun 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 dun. That's all I did with mine. That's literally as simple as it was, and I just really enjoyed just making a little phrase that sort of was complete.
My fragment comes near the end of the piece, and it's essentially a compression of the entire piece up until this point. So the way that I went about writing it was I took the audio file of the piece up until when my fragment should come in, and I compressed it from just over 9 minutes to just over 9 seconds.
Are we naming composers here? Or... there's a few bars by Drew Masters where suddenly we're in a sort of John Barry, James Bond score, and I love that moment.
So I figured everyone would probably do stuff that was quite complicated and quite clever. And so what I wanted to do was try and juxtapose that with something just much more simple, just more melodic and harmonic, and just perhaps some moments of respite from all the craziness that was going on. And so I went with a kind of metaphorical tropical breeze blowing through the palm trees on a lovely island somewhere, and just a moment of like a warm hug in the middle of all this chaos. And let's see if I achieve that. I'll find out when I hear it.
I mean, it sort of comes out of nowhere, and it's very, very lush, and it sort of comes and then it goes. And similarly, the few bars we have of Oliver Nussin, again, it's just this little world appears, and it's beautiful, and it goes.
My father was Oliver Nussin. He was at the Purcell School in the 60s when it was called Central Tutorial School for Young Musicians. And I chose 2 teeny tiny chords that happen right before the horn enters in his horn concerto. I thought it would be really fun to have something recognizable but tiny as a little hello from my dad.
Now I'm thinking of lots of them. There's a bit by Colin Alexander where all the strings are suddenly playing harmonics. And again, you're just in a new place. And as part of the joy of this piece is that the surprising element. You don't quite know after a few bars what the next thing is going to be. That it then makes some sort of sense is, well, I said a miracle earlier, and I still think it is. It's amazing how when we're listening to something, we make sense of it. I think it's part of the human condition, if we're going to get deep about it. We want things to mean, to make sense. When that's what we do, we engage with it. And somehow all these bits become a thing.
SCRAWL is the first thing I have done of my own for 25 years. It's scary as well, because putting your own voice out there after a long time is more terrifying than I can possibly tell you.
We're at the moment in the creation where you cross your fingers and you wish the thing all the best and you launch it out into the world, and who knows.
This piece belongs to everybody who has been involved. It's a collaborative composition. It's been co-composed by 60 people, and that is the important and very special thing about it. The ending is very spectacular. It's a concept ending where all the players have to take their own favourite bit of the piece and play it simultaneously, getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and then they all end on 8 spectacular chords. And they stand up.
It's definitely a very difficult piece, so there were some points where I was a bit afraid, but I think the end result was pretty good, and I think it went right somewhere in all those takes.
Well, I've never done anything quite like this before on like the big scale, you know, so it was quite exciting.
Performing a new piece is really challenging and tricky, but I think we managed to do it really well.
This is such a new innovative idea that we can't just listen to this music like we would all their music. You know, this is something that's very unique and very special, and I think we should carry that.
It's quite clever, I would say.
SCRAWL really inspired me to write a piece for cello and piano.
I got to stand up and play the solo and everything. It's quite stressful, but at the same time, being there and just playing that solo is amazing. I honestly feel lucky to do that.
I'd say it's a sense of community. It was quite like when we all got it together and it was like, yay. Yeah, it was a really good fun.